For years, fans have wondered why Mase, once one of the biggest names in music, suddenly walked away right when he was at the top of his game. Rumors have swirled, whispers of hidden conflicts and rivalries that forced him out of the spotlight. But now, at 49, the silence is finally over. Mase is pulling back the curtain, revealing the grudges, the betrayals, and the artists he could never stand. And in his own words, these are the 6 artists he hated the most. Starting at number 6, we have Cameron. If you want to understand Mase's story, you have to go back to Harlem, where everything began. Before the flashy cars, diamond chains, and platinum records, Mase and Cameron weren't rap stars. They were just kids from the same neighborhood, sharing the same dream. Back then, Mase was known as Murda Mase, and Cameron was Killa Cam. They played on the same high school basketball team, and they rapped side by side in a local Harlem group called Children of the Corn, alongside legends like Big L. To everyone around them, it looked like a brotherhood that could never be broken. But when Mase signed with Diddy and Bad Boy Records in 1996, everything changed. Practically overnight, Mase went from local talent to one of the biggest rappers in the game, dropping hits like Feel So Good and shining next to Notorious B.I.G. and Puff Daddy. For Cameron, who was still grinding for his shot, it felt like Mase had left him behind. According to Cam, the fame got to Mase's head. The guy who once had his back started acting like a stranger, and Mase too noticed everything about their relationship changed when he became big.
When I got the money, it just changed everything.
The story Cameron often tells is brutal. He claims that when he asked Mase to help him get a deal, Mase brushed him off and told him to focus on basketball instead. Imagine hearing that from someone you grew up with. To Cam, it felt like betrayal. To Mase, it was just business. And from there, the cracks in their friendship only grew deeper. For nearly 20 years, the tension simmered quietly, popping up in small interviews or subliminal shots in songs. But in 2017, Mase finally let it all out. He dropped a diss track called The Oracle, and it was nothing short of nuclear. Mase accused Cam of being a snitch, mocked him for his street credibility, and even went as far as dragging Cam's family into it with disturbing allegations. He shockingly brought up an old story about Cameron allegedly having inappropriate relations with his own sister. It was a deeply personal and vicious attack that went far beyond typical rap beef. Cam didn't stay quiet for long. He laughed it off on Instagram Live, calling Mase soft and claiming he was the real predator in Harlem. A few days later, Cameron dropped his own diss track, Dinner Time, where he fired back with equal venom. He painted Mase as a fake preacher who ran to the church to escape his old life, accused him of abandoning Harlem, and mocked his transformation from Murda Mase to Pastor Mason Betha. He also brought up an old story about having to protect Mase after Mase allegedly got into a situation with a man on the street. The fallout forced fans to pick sides. To some, Mase was right for exposing the truth about their history. To others, Cameron looked like the loyal friend who got left in the dust. Even in interviews, Cam didn't sugarcoat it. In interviews, Cameron calmly broke down his side of the story, explaining that the root of their issue was jealousy and disrespect. He claimed that after he finally got his own record deal, Mase tried to sabotage him. For Mase, the feud represented a painful break from his past. He felt that Cameron had twisted their history and was bitter about his success. While Cameron saw a friend who abandoned him, Mase saw a brother who became an enemy out of envy. Moving on to number 5, we have Diddy. If Mase's fallout with Cameron felt like a broken friendship, his war with Sean Diddy Combs was far worse. This wasn't just about hurt feelings. This was about control, money, and the fight for Mase's entire legacy. The man who had once given him everything became the very person holding him back. When Mase first joined Bad Boy Records in the mid-90s, it felt like a dream. Diddy was the hottest name in hip-hop, the mastermind behind the Notorious B.I.G., and now he had found a new star in Harlem. With his charm, smooth delivery, and catchy hooks, Mase became the face of the label. He was the perfect counterbalance to Biggie's grit, delivering feel-good hits like Feel So Good and What You Want. To fans, it looked like Mase had it all, but behind the scenes, he was learning a harsh truth. Nothing in the music business comes for free. The heart of their feud comes down to publishing. For those who don't know, publishing is the most valuable part of music. It means owning the rights to the lyrics, the melodies, and the songs themselves. Every time that music gets played, licensed, or sampled, publishing is what brings the checks. Young Mase didn't fully understand the game when he signed his contract. According to him, Diddy bought his publishing for just $20,000, a price that, in hindsight, looks like robbery. As the years went by, Mase realized what he had lost. While his songs kept playing everywhere and helped keep Bad Boy's name alive, the money from those rights was flowing straight into Diddy's pockets. Mase says he tried again and again to buy back his publishing, even offering Diddy $2 million in cash, but every attempt was blocked. For him, it wasn't just business. It felt like being chained to the very man who once called him his little brother. The issue stayed mostly quiet until early 2020 when everything boiled over. Diddy had just been honored with an Icon Award at the Grammys and gave a powerful speech about how black artists needed to fight for ownership and fair treatment. The crowd cheered, but Mase was furious. To him, Diddy was preaching about values he had never practiced. Mase grabbed his phone and unloaded on Instagram. In a long post, he accused Diddy of being a hypocrite. "Your past business practices knowingly has continued purposely starved your artist," Mase wrote. He revealed the details of his publishing deal, claiming Diddy refused to sell it back unless Mase could outbid a European buyer. "You bought it for about $20K, Mase reminded him, exposing what he felt was exploitation of a young, desperate artist chasing a dream. The post sent shockwaves through hip-hop. This wasn't just a vague complaint. Mase was putting numbers on the table and dragging his old boss in front of the world. And when he spoke in interviews afterwards, his words carried even more weight. On the podcast $1 Million Worth of Game, Mase explained that the real reason he walked away from rap at the height of his fame wasn't only about religion. Becoming a pastor was also his escape route from a contract that left him suffocated. He said he felt trapped, like he couldn't breathe in the business anymore. For a while, Diddy stayed silent. But in 2022, he finally broke his silence on The Breakfast Club. His response only added fuel to the fire. He flat out denied Mase's version of the story, insisting that he didn't do anything to Mase.
Because what he had a problem with you his artist saying the same
First
thing.
of all, see, I didn't do nothing.
Instead, he insisted that Mase was the one in debt. According to him, he never robbed anyone. And if Mase's career fell apart, it was because of Mase's own choices.
Yeah.
Do you look at that and be like, that's just an executive, or is it one of those things like I told you?
No, I don't look at it like that.
That moment split fans right down the middle. Some saw Mase as the victim, a young rapper who got taken advantage of by one of the sharpest businessmen in music. Others sided with Diddy, arguing that Mase was ungrateful and rewriting history. But no matter which side you believe, the feud changed the way people saw both men. For Mase, it was about finally speaking his truth. He wasn't just Diddy's former star anymore. He became the face of every artist who felt cheated out of their art. The cautionary tale for rappers signing contracts too young to understand what they were giving away. However, during a 2023 interview on The Breakfast Club, Diddy spoke again about his beef with Mase. The two of them have had their fair share of issues in the past. But Diddy says that he continues to have a soft spot for the artist. He claims that through it all, Mase is still a brother to him that he'll always love. Diddy went on to claim that he's actually sat down with Mase to hash things out before, suggesting that their relationship is worth fixing. He says that although he may not always agree with him, Mase was a catalyst to his own personal self-reflection. Another artist Mase couldn't stand is 50 Cent. By the time Mase was fighting his battles with Diddy, another giant had already taken over New York hip-hop. His name was Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, a man who built his empire on one thing above all else, being real. 50 survived being shot 9 times, turned his street stories into platinum records, and made authenticity his personal brand. In his world, there were only 2 types of rappers, the ones who lived their truth and the ones who faked it. And in 50's eyes, Mase was the biggest fraud of them all. To 50, Mase wasn't the Harlem kid with slick wordplay who once ran with Biggie. He was the shiny suit rapper, the guy who left hip-hop at its peak and disappeared into the pulpit, only to pop back up whenever it suited him. When Mase announced that he was leaving rap in 1999 to become a pastor, the industry was shocked. Fans saw it as a bold move, but 50 saw it as a weakness. He never believed Mase's spiritual journey was genuine. To him, it was a way of running from the streets and the pressures of fame. The clash between them turned personal when Mase tried to make a comeback in the mid-2000s. In a surprising move, he linked up with G-Unit Records. That's 50's own camp. On paper, it should have been a big second chance for Mase, pairing him with the hottest crew in rap at the time. But the partnership fell apart almost immediately. 50 made it clear he didn't take Mase seriously. Instead of embracing him, he treated Mase's comeback as proof of what he'd been saying all along, that Mase couldn't survive without attaching himself to bigger names. From then on, 50 turned Mase into one of his favorite targets. In interviews, he mocked Mase constantly, calling him a fake pastor who used religion to hustle people. He painted Mase not as a man of God, but as a con artist who ran to the church whenever rap didn't work out. And because 50 never let a joke die, the trolling just kept going. For years, Mase stayed quiet. Unlike Cameron, who traded barbs with him, Mase mostly refused to get dragged into 50's circus, but the silence only made 50's voice louder. When news broke in 2022 that Mase was accused of shady dealings with rising Brooklyn rapper Fivio Foreign, reportedly locking him into a questionable 5-0 advance deal, 50 was the first to jump in. He plastered memes, made jokes, and told his millions of followers that this was exactly what he'd been saying all along. Mase wasn't a pastor or a mentor. He was a predator hiding behind a microphone and a Bible. 50 Cent even sat down for an interview with Rap Radar's Cigar Talk series, and this was what he had to say.
Somebody did to you, and you doing it to somebody else? Out of here, man.
Right.
At its core, the feud between Mase and 50 Cent is about two completely different philosophies. Mase represents the entertainer, the smooth showman who went from Harlem streets to hip-hop stardom, then to the pulpit, then back to the stage again. To Mase, life has always been about reinvention and growth, but 50 doesn't see it that way. To him, Mase's career isn't a story of faith and second chances. It's the story of someone running a hustle. And in 50's book, there is no worse crime in hip-hop than being fake. Number 3 on the list is Jay-Z. Not every feud in Mase's career was loud or messy. Some were quiet, subtle, and fought with clever rhymes instead of public arguments. That was the case with Jay-Z. Their rivalry wasn't built on screaming matches or interviews. It was more like a Cold War, a lyrical chess game over who would wear the crown of New York after the death of the notorious B.I.G. To understand why this mattered, you have to go back to the late 1990s. Biggie's death in 1997 left a massive hole in East Coast hip-hop. Whoever stepped up next would control the throne. Two names stood out. One was Mase, the Harlem star with the smooth flow, Bad Boy's golden boy who dominated radio with flashy, pop-friendly hits like Feel So Good. He was everywhere, on TV, in magazines, in music videos with shiny suits and million-dollar smiles. On the other side was Jay-Z, the hustler from Brooklyn's Marcy Projects. His music was sharper, grittier, full of street codes and hustler wisdom. They were completely different, but both wanted the same thing, the title of King of New York. The rivalry played out in music. Jay-Z, who always valued authenticity, wasn't impressed by the glossy bad boy image. He made that clear on songs like Imaginary Player and 1997. On the track, Jay raps about rappers renting cars and jewelry just to look rich in music videos. He never said Mase's name, but everyone in hip-hop knew who he was talking about. Mase had become the face of the shiny suit era, and Jay-Z wanted the world to know that wasn't real hustler behavior. Indeed, in 1998, Mase delivered a subtle retort in 112's hit, Love Me, rapping, "What we hear is platinum that, platinum this, platinum whips. Nobody got no platinum hits." This line is widely interpreted as a subliminal shot at Jay-Z. Then, in 1999, Mase shocked everyone by retiring at the peak of his fame to become a pastor. With Mase gone, the competition ended before it really exploded, and Jay-Z stepped into the throne that Biggie left behind. This wasn't the type of feud filled with betrayals and bitter interviews. There was no friendship to fall apart, no paperwork to fight over. It was about pride. It was about two men competing for the same throne at the highest level. Mase was the superstar who brought Harlem's swagger into the mainstream, while Jay-Z was the strategist who built an empire from the ground up. At the top of the list is Fivio Foreign. If there is one feud that captures the contradictions of Mase's career, it's this one. For years, Mase was the loudest voice calling out Diddy and Bad Boy for trapping artists in unfair contracts. He painted himself as the victim of a ruthless system, the man who wanted freedom but was held hostage by paperwork. But decades later, that same story came back to haunt him in the most ironic way. This time, he wasn't the victim, he was the boss. And the artist calling him out was Brooklyn drill star Fivio Foreign. The whole thing exploded in July 2022 when Fivio sat down for an interview on the podcast $1 Million Worth of Game. The host asked him how much money he got when he first signed with Mase's label, Rich Fish Records. With a shrug, Fivio dropped a bomb. $5,000. The room froze. $5,000? That number was so small, it sounded like a joke. In an industry where young artists often brag about six-figure signing bonuses, the thought of one of New York's hottest drill rappers starting his career with just 5-0 was shocking. Within hours, clips of the interview went viral. Social media lit up. Fans and critics accused Mase of doing the very thing he once condemned Diddy for. The man who preached about bad deals was now being accused of handing one out himself. For Fivio, it wasn't just about the money. He explained that when Mase came to him with the contract, he was desperate to get his career moving. He admitted he didn't really understand the terms, but he trusted Mase. After all, this was Harlem's own Mase, the guy who made it out, the man who knew the game inside and out. But over time, that trust turned into regret. Fivio said he felt trapped, like he had been tricked into signing something that only benefited Mase. The story spread like wildfire, and critics wasted no time piling on. Nobody loved it more than 50 Cent, who has made Mase one of his favorite punching bags for years. 50 took to Instagram almost instantly, mocking Mase and painting him as the ultimate hypocrite. For 50, this was proof of what he had been saying all along, that Mase was not a man of God or a savior for artists, but just another hustler in a preacher's suit. The backlash was brutal, and Mase knew he couldn't stay quiet. Just a week later, in a move that surprised everyone, he went straight to the same podcast where Fivio had told his story. Sitting in the exact same seat, Mase broke down his side of the deal. He admitted that yes, the initial advance really was 5-0, but he argued that people were missing the bigger picture. According to Mase, the deal was small because Fivio was unproven at the time. In fact, Mase claimed he had poured his own money into Fivio's career, saying he spent more than $700,000 to clean up his business, break him free from old obligations, and set him up for a major deal with Columbia Records worth millions. From his perspective, he hadn't exploited Fivio. He had invested in him, mentored him, and given him opportunities most rappers never get. What stung Mase the most was not the criticism itself, but that it came from someone he thought he had helped build. The feud between Mase and Fivio hits harder than most of his other conflicts because it forces a deeper question. Was Mase really guilty of repeating the same sins that he once accused Diddy of? Or was he a veteran who understood the harsh realities of the business, making moves that young artists often don't understand until later? Either way, this clash is more than just a disagreement about money. It's a mirror reflecting Mase's entire journey, from bad boy's shiny suit superstar to preacher to label boss. It shows that in hip-hop, the line between mentorship and manipulation is thin, and even legends can find themselves accused of becoming the very thing they once fought against. And there you have it, the artist whom Mase says he just couldn't stand. His story is full of rivalries, regrets, and a whole lot of unfinished business. But it also gives us a rare look at the man behind the music. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Mase was justified in holding these grudges, or was he being too bitter about the past? Which of these feuds surprised you the most? And if you had to guess, who else do you think might still be on his hidden list? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about it.